Good morning, or I guess good afternoon, good night. You could probably be watching this video at any time. It's morning for me though, so hello everybody. How you guys doing today? This is Ryan from Best Five Pack. I wanted to make a quick video today, and I just thought it'd be good for people, especially newer people, to NBA DFS. Talk about some of the different things that you want to look at when making your NBA DFS decisions. What's going to help you be more effective, more consistent, win more often. What goes into making quality NBA DFS decisions, for example. So these won't be in any specific order or anything like that, just things that I know are going to be right near the top of the list of things you need to consider when making your decisions. And hopefully some of this stuff will kind of help you guys up your game to the next level. And especially if you're new, give you a better kind of baseline of where you need to go to make your decisions. Now, before we get going though, guys, if you happen to be new to this station, please help me get my subscriber total up to 5,000. I think my kid will think I'm a little bit cooler if I get up there. Press that red button that says subscribe. And if you're interested in becoming a customer of the DFS 5-pack, what you get from us is we cover baseball, basketball, football. I have a business partner, and we normally do videos together. We'll be out in a little bit here with some NBA content for today, but we provide daily write-ups for both cash and GPP. We give you kind of a core group of guys to look at. That way, if you're if you're kind of just like a normal customer of ours and you're busy with work, kids, whatever it might be, it'll expedite your evaluation process, but you're still going to have to make a few decisions on your own. We'll give a longer list of soft recommends. You can choose from that if you like, or you can make a few decisions on your own. But the goal is for you to have an easier time making a full lineup. So we'll give you a core to start with, but we're not going to do full lineup sharing or anything like that. Anyways, the website's down in the description section. Just go over to sign up options. We got lifetime, monthly, annual, whatever works best for you. In the meantime, though, these are some of the things that I find to be very important when I want to set my NBA DFS lineups. Wow. Probably, I don't know if I'll call it the top thing, but it is right near the top for me. And that is checking out your pace of play options. So this one, if you really just want to keep it simple, more possessions equal more points. A possession is normally going to end with a few things. Either somebody makes a basket, somebody gets a rebound, somebody blocks a shot, there's a turnover with a steal. However the possession ends, like 90+% of them, unless the ball is just thrown out of bounds, and in positive points for somebody on this team. More possessions equal more points. So if you look at just how the NBA is going so far here through 2018, we got a couple of the usual suspects up near the top, with Brooklyn, the Lakers, the Suns, the 76ers, Golden State. These teams all play at a frenetic pace. So normally this can be a good influence on their opponents. Meanwhile, if you flip towards the bottom of the list, you got a Chicago, Memphis, Sacramento, San Antonio. These teams work at a very slow pace of play. So you're going to have fewer possessions. Ideally, you don't look to pick on these teams, especially if you have like an 11-game slate. I'm really just staying away from them. I don't really desire to play guys against San Antonio or Sacramento if I don't have to. Now, on a 3-game slate, you're likely going to have no other options but to take a look at these teams. But in an ideal situation, I don't say you 100% avoid them, but you look to avoid them more than you can. So pace of play to me, if it's not the top thing I look at, it is right near the top of things that are going to help you decide better what's going to be good for your NBA DFS team. Next, is the game going to be close? Now, I normally make these decisions on my own if I think a game's going to be close or not, but that doesn't mean that I don't go check my Vegas odds every single day. And if you're not like me, if you don't spend all of your nights watching basketball from the time it comes on until the time it ends, it's probably a little bit more difficult for you to know who's going to win these games. So you should take a look at your Vegas odds every day. And I take a look at them every day just as kind of a backup. So this is going to go back to both, is the game going to be close, but also is it going to be high scoring? So if you look at today's Vegas odds, for example, we got a Phoenix versus Lakers game to close it out with an over-under total of about 227 we're looking at, with a discrepancy of about 6.5 points. Looks like this game's going to have a nice pace of play to it. Should have plenty of points. Looks like it's on the cusp of being close. So that's one where you need to just make a decision on your own. Do you think that 6 is about right? Like 15. Guys lose minutes, and it's hard to get optimal value if somebody is not going to be out there closing in the fourth quarter. They need their time. Same thing would go for the Clippers versus Cleveland game. We got a 222 over-under for the point total. We got about a -6. Cavs are favored. Seems about right to me. I want to look at picking on a few guys. Now, on the flip side, if you go take a look at like, what would be a really good example of this one. We don't have a great example tonight, but if I see a game, like just looking at Oklahoma City and San Antonio, you've got a relatively slow pace of play there. Although in my mind, I think that game is going to be kind of close. I wouldn't totally 100% ignore it, but I'm not looking to like load up on anybody in that game simply because it is going to be a slower game. Now, if you look at like Charlotte and Chicago, that's another one with a pretty low point total. I also know just how bad the Bulls are. So it gives me a little cause for pause at anybody from Charlotte. Simply from the factor that not only is it going to be a slower game, you also know that there's every opportunity for Kemba Walker, Nick Batum, any of the starters from Charlotte to be sitting on the sidelines come fourth quarter. And if they're not closing, it limits upside. They can still hit cash game value because they're likely scoring enough points to do so. But it really does limit their upside. And a good example is last night, James Harden went absolutely beast mode on the Phoenix Suns. It was like watching him tear up a high school team. It was effortless beyond belief. The problem was he still only barely surpassed cash game value for his monster salary because he didn't have to play the last 6 minutes of the game. And they actually ran him longer in the game than I expected because they were up by so much. So that's why you want a game to be close. You need your guys out there throughout the majority of the game if you really want to score effectively. All right, next thing up, looking at your projections. So one site that a lot of people go to, and they have free projections, so you don't even need to pay for this site. I'm sure most people are going to be pretty well aware of who RotoGrinders is at this point. If you don't know RotoGrinders, they are, I'm about 99% positive on this, the top ranked team or the top website for the number of people that go there. So they do a really good job of establishing what the chalk is going to be. What I mean by what the chalk is going to be is how highly owned are these guys going to be. For example, I know looking right here that Greg Monroe is projected for about 30 points off of a lower salary of 4.1K, and that he's going to probably be relatively highly owned. Now, I ran Greg Monroe last night, and I was one of the few people that did so. He was a hard recommend to my customers. He is the biggest reason that the majority of my customer base, or our customer base, won last night because he had a monster game. Not a lot of people were on that yet, but because it's so fresh in their memory, because it's matched up with the Lakers, people know this is a premier game. He just did it. He's highly ranked. I know Greg Monroe is going to be super chalky. And unless I hear he's on a minutes restriction today after playing a lot of minutes last night and he's been nursing a sore knee for 9 games, I'm just going to ride that wave right there. I watched him play last night. He looked excellent. And he looks like tonight he's got even better matchup going up against the Lakers. So I'm a big fan of Greg Monroe tonight. We just watched Joel Embiid go absolutely beast mode from the center position against the Lakers. And while Joel Embiid and Greg Monroe, they ain't the same guy. Greg Monroe is a talented guy. So at 4.1K, he makes a lot of sense. Now, I use a website called Basketball Monster for my projections the majority of the time. The difference here is you have to pay for Basketball Monster. I personally have found their projections to be better for my money. But again, not everybody wants to go spend the 120 or whatever it is for them. I love Basketball Monster. It's the only website I pay for throughout the year. I get all my player news right here in the front page. I don't have to go to 8 different websites. And then if I could just go up to DFS tools and look at their projections, it's going to be a little different, but pretty similar setup to RotoGrinders. I like looking at these projections as kind of a baseline, and I can start at the top to know how popular these guys are going to be, but don't be a slave to them. Don't just only go off projections. You're going to have to make your decisions in some other areas, but this is going to help you to determine like how popular are guys going to be. If they're closer to the top, they're generally going to be more popular. It's not 100% going to work out like that every day, but it's a pretty good baseline for you to decide how popular guys will be on a given night. All right. Next up, you got defensive positional rankings. And if you need a website to do this, guys, it is really, really easy. Go to Google, and I put out a big point to this to some of my customers this week, guys. You got a question? Instead of asking somebody else, go ask Google. Look that stuff up yourself. Not only are you probably going to get the answer faster, you're probably going to get a better answer. There's likely RotoGrinders or Fantasy Labs or somebody else has written a 1-page or a couple paragraph article on something that's going to be a better answer than anybody that you talk to is going to give you. So look it up, read it through, understand it, and it's only going to help your game. So we talk about defensive positional rankings. You can go from point guard to shooting guard to centers. So we click over on centers, and we see that for the season, the Sacramento Kings are really giving it up to the center position. Meanwhile, the Boston Celtics, which is no surprise because they play good defense, centers are not doing very well against them. So when I'm looking at defensive positional rankings, two big things. One, as the year progresses, these mean more. Early on in the season, this is going to be a lot about who they face. Now, if you're watching this today as this video comes out, we're starting to get a good feel for it now. We're getting closer to a fifth of the way through the season. So we're starting to get a better idea if these statistics are fraudulent or real, but it's still a little early on to just really, really lean on them. You can go back and look at matchups this early on this season to get an idea of who they've played, but that's a lot of work for a lot of people. Again, that's why you pay us, so I can do that work for you. Hold up 1 second while I sip my coffee. When I look at the defensive positional rankings, I look at this like a bell-shaped curve. I want to know who is drastically on one side or the other. So I see the Kings, the Mavericks, the Nets are all really, really bad against big man, the 76ers. Meanwhile, I know the Celtics, the Blazers are really, really good against it. Everybody right here in the middle, like the difference between, say, the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Lakers is only a couple of points. So these guys right here in the middle, I don't really take a lot out of that. I look for the people on the extremes. Either they're really, really good at it or they're really, really bad at it. Those are the people I either want to play or avoid. The people in the middle, I mean, that's exactly what it is. It doesn't really influence your decision one way or the other. So look it up, bookmark it. If you're like me, after a while, you'll kind of have all this stuff memorized. But in the meantime, it's really going to help you make these decisions. And then watch how these things fluctuate up and down. And then you can also take into account if somebody is injured, for example. Like right now, I know that Patrick Beverley is injured for the Clippers, which means they're probably worse against the point guard than they would have been earlier in the season. All right, next up, we've covered defensive positional rankings, cash versus GPP. So this is a big one to me. Know the difference between cash versus GPP. In cash games, you want consistency. You want guys that are out there basically every single night doing the exact same thing, really no variance in how their games are. Take a look at a guy like Nikola Jokic. If you look at him right now, you see that he's got totals of 26, 58, 35, and 74. That is a major difference in variance of how he scores. So a guy like this, I'll pick him for cash in the right matchups, but he looks more on paper as a GPP guy. Why? Because he's all over the board. He's really good, and then he's not so good. And it's back and forth. We know that the Nuggets have just a huge long list of guys who are talented. So on any given night, it's possible that somebody else really balls out, and he just doesn't need to do as much. But in the right matchups, you can still play a guy like this in cash. Just make sure it's the right matchup that you want to take advantage of. For example, I ran him in cash against Brooklyn and Orlando. It worked out really, really well. There's other days where I would limit him more to a GPP because I don't know that he's going to do it. And this guy, for example, is one of my favorite DFS plays. So I actually think he'll even out more as the season goes. But I thought he was a good example early on. Meanwhile, let me find somebody who's been really consistent all season. Goran Dragic. So if you look at Goran Dragic and you just simply look through his game log for the past 10 games, you'll see that 31, 35, 25, 46, 29, 28, 42, 37, 32. There's not a big discrepancy between his best and his worst game. It simply goes somewhere between 25 and 46 with a lot of things right smack dab in the middle right there. So that is a guy that I will typically look more at for a cash game situation. Yes, there are some games where he can hit GPP value like he did against the Phoenix in the Supreme matchup. But outside of that, the guy has been really, really consistent. So I tend to look for a player like that more than the cash game format where you only have to beat half the field. You don't need to beat everybody. Okay, next up, you are looking at back-to-backs. This is a big one. If you're missing out on this, you are missing something to me that is very, very important. And that is knowing if guys played the day before or they're going to play the day after. Why is this important? Because in a situation where they have a game the next day, if the score is a little bit lopsided, it is more likely for the coach to pull those guys and save them for their next day. On the flip side, they can also be a little bit tired if they played the night before. So you don't 100% avoid guys on back-to-backs. It's not like this cardinal rule that you can't ever play them, but you're specifically, you can use it as a tiebreaker and look for both sides of it. You know, I know today's Friday. So I'm looking for guys that have 2 games to play. So, for example, right here, I see that the Los Angeles Clippers are going to be in Cleveland tonight. So I know that I love to target guys against Cleveland. So I don't want to completely rule these guys out, but I do know that since they are going to play at Charlotte tomorrow, if this is a situation where I think this game might get a little lopsided, a little early on, then it's possible like a Blake Griffin, Lou Williams, whoever you're looking at, may see less minutes if the game is a little bit lopsided. That's a decision you have to make. If you think the game's going to be close, expect the coach to give these guys a full run. So if the game's going to be tight, the coach wants to win. One in the bush is worth two in the hand, or one in the hand's worth two in the bush. You want to win now if you're given the opportunity. On the flippity flip, though, like I said, if there's a 20-point discrepancy in the fourth quarter, you can expect Blake Griffin to be over on the sideline resting, getting pumped up to go ahead and play another game tomorrow with hopefully better results. All right. Injuries. So injuries are a really, really big thing in the NBA. Now, if you're a wily NBA veteran, this is something that you know what an influence they have on the landscape of the game. What you're looking in is fill-ins. A great example, let's pull up Sweet Lou since I just brought him up anyway. Over the last, I think it's about 4 games now, Patrick Beverley and Danilo Gallinari have been out for the Los Angeles Clippers. So what you've seen is Lou Williams fill in, and you've seen him have some monster games off his salary. Now, he's been wildly popular because this is something that most people pay a lot of attention to. The game against New Orleans wasn't great, but I also lean on that back-to-back right there. An older guy that played 39 minutes the night before, I don't expect great results out of him the next day. Now, I played him because it's safe, and I like Lou Williams, and it was a good spot, and I knew he'd be wildly popular. But at the same time, I wasn't shocked to see him not score that well these games. But the 2 other games, he's been an absolute beast of production. His minutes have spiked. You can see right here, if you look through his game log prior to this, the guy was playing anywhere from 18 to 30 minutes. You were typically seeing results, upper teens to upper 20s. Not a bad play for his price, but as he's been filling in, his usage has gone through the roof. His playing time has gone through the roof. And that's the reason that myself and pretty much most people who like to win money playing NBA DFS have been taking advantage of this. I mean, he was wildly popular against Philadelphia the other night when he went for 60.25 because it made so much sense. You know what I mean? I think he was like 75, 80, 85% owned from my recollection. He was massively owned for those reasons. And the safe move was the plan. Even at this price, knowing what a great matchup this is, it's probably the safe move to play him tonight. He's got a bunch of days off to get rest and get healthy. I haven't verified that Gallinari and Beverley are out tonight, but I believe that they are. So the safe move is likely to go with Lou Williams again, filling in for those injuries. This is ever so important. This shapes the landscape of NBA DFS as much as anything on a given day. And that's why if you can't be around for that last hour before tip-off, you might as well just light your money on fire because that's when a lot of these last-minute decisions come out. Guys get rested, guys get injured. And when new players step in, they get a bump in usage. So that brings me to my next point. Understanding what usage means. And this also goes, if you don't get it, look it up. Definition of usage for NBA. Boom, right there, top of the list. It gives you a definition of what it actually is. Usage percentage is an estimate of the percentage of team plays used by a player while he's on the floor. If you want to keep it simple, stupid definition of usage, how much is the guy going to have the ball in his hands? It is difficult to put up DFS points if you're not touching the ball. Rebounds, block shots, steals, points, assists. This all requires your hand touching the ball. So while you may not have high usage, if you can get blocks and steals and rebounds, you're not going to get points and you're not going to get assists if the ball isn't in your hand. So higher usage players are better. Getting a spike in usage when somebody else is out is really, really important. So that is a big thing. I think we all use it in some shape, way, or form. Actually knowing the definition of it may help you, but if you really like to keep it simple, you just like to understand which guys are going to have the ball in their hands and are most likely to get you points. All right, one more thing I want to take a look at, guys, past performances against a certain team. Now, I don't lean on this a ton, but in certain scenarios, it's something I like to take a look at. And I like to go to a website like Basketball Reference, for example, because I like to look at it a little bit more granularly to figure out how these points were scored. Were they home games, away games, or anything like that? So you can just look up a guy like a LeBron James. LeBron James is matched up with the Clippers. Now, I have no reason to think that LeBron James has any bad blood, any animosity towards the Clippers. So this isn't a specific matchup that I'm really looking into. There are certain guys I want to check out matchups against. Like, are they going back to Madison Square Garden? Are they going back to where they played their college ball, for example? Is there a reason for them to get specifically up for that game that they may take a few more shots and be a little bit more aggressive? So by going back and look at LeBron versus the Clippers, I see last year he didn't play and he had one less than stellar game. It looks like the Cavaliers really laid an egg that game, so he didn't do much. What do I take out of this? A whole bunch of nothing. But it's really easy for me to go back. I can go ahead, click on his 2015, 2016 game log. I can go back, tier these guys by their opponent. Go back and look what he did against the Clippers those times. Again, two less than stellar performances by LeBron James. They won both of those games by a good amount. You can see in the game that they won by 24, his minutes were down from what he normally did. So you take into accordance how much you take out of that. And then start wondering about things. Is it possible that DeAndre Jordan clogging up the lane is bad for his position? He likes to go to the hoop a little bit more? Maybe. I don't take a whole bunch out of this one. It was just the first name that came out of my head. But I do, in certain situations, like to go back and look at what a certain player does against a certain team, whether it be because it's a division rival of some sort. Like I talked about, maybe it's where they played their college ball or where they grew up. Often I like to look and see how people did when they go back to Madison Square Garden. Some guys just love the ball in New York. But different reasons like that, I like to look through past performances and just try to figure out if there's something I can take advantage of there. You got to pick and choose your spots with it, though. Like, I bring up LeBron James versus the Clippers, but there wasn't really anything there for me to think like he had a specific reason to be bad or good against the Clippers. You don't have time to look up everybody, so you just pick and choose your spots on this one. So just going through this stuff early on, guys, it should give you a pretty good understanding of why there are people like Matt and myself out there, so we can do a lot of this work for you through the day. I'm able to have a lot of this stuff memorized because it's what I do all day, every day. But for normal people that, work a 9 to 5, have kids, have, girlfriend, wife, boyfriend, whatever it might be, you got things in your real life that you need to take care of. So you can't spend all day looking at numbers and statistics like a nerd like me. I love my numbers. I love my stats. This is why I got into doing stuff like this. I have very few interests, but sports and numbers are two things I like a lot. So fantasy sports was just a natural conversion for me. And I like looking stuff like this all day long. So if you need somebody in your back pocket who will help you on a daily basis, come join our community. Sign up at the website. It's right down there in the description section. Anybody who signs up is more than welcome to have access to one of our private VIP Facebook groups. This is simply a place for me to post little things. If I come up with them, we post our members only videos. But it's a good place for you to talk to other DFS players. I can't look at every single player from every single game every day. Don't have the time. There are things that I'll miss from time to time. And that's why you got other people that maybe will bring up some good suggestions or just the overall camaraderie that you might want to get out of playing DFS. I got some customers that will tell me that before finding your group, I was about done with DFS, but having the community around just makes it more fun. So if you're looking to have more fun, that's what this game is ultimately played for. We are here to help. That being said, appreciate you guys watching. Standard normal video will be out a little bit later as we run through this Friday night slate. Let's go win some money tonight, guys, whenever you're watching this. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching this stuff on a routine basis. And for all of our paying customers out there, sincerely appreciate you guys spending your hard-earned money with us so that I can do this for a living and not go work a 9 to 5 job that I have no passion for. I like working 80 hours a week doing this stuff. It's fun. All right, guys, take care.